There is nothing anybody wants to tell me. This lady, that white woman just absolutely wants to go viral. And you know, this annoying part of these people is whenever they want to go viral, they do everything that will trigger the black community. See, the truth is, if you've seen, let me know. I have not seen, I have literally not seen white people doing something, even if it's just 50%, that they know it is going to be profitable to black people. I have not seen. I have not seen. Although I even saw a lot of black people actually bringing their own opinion, but I have what I'm going to be saying at the end of this video. And maybe my reasons can be genuine, maybe my reasons cannot be genuine. I don't know. White people are only concentrated on what will definitely profit them, and they want black people to join their community, join hands together to do that thing that will profit them. But whenever it comes to black people, it is not okay by them. It is not. Let it make sense to me that this white woman set up a camera. Probably I stitched her video here, but if you didn't see it, maybe YouTube actually asked me to trim it up. Probably, right? But you might see it, hopefully, because yeah, she set her camera, turned on a ring light, and called herself varieties of name before diving into saying this Arab nonsense as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, let me allow you guys to enjoy. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Credit belongs to the original creator of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. And I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you joining my membership, liking my videos, dropping commentary, subscribing, and even dropping super thanks. Who am I? I am so grateful. Thank you. With that being said, let's get right into this video, and I'll be back with commentaries. Let's go watch, guys.
POV, I'm like the most annoying person you know. Oh, you just got back from Target? Oh, that's kind of crazy. Oh, you don't have a car and Target's the closest store with tampons in walking distance and you just needed tampons and the closest mom and pop shop is a 2-hour walk away and they don't even have tampons there? Yeah, but Target's unethical. That's kind of crazy. What's this? Oh, this is just my lithium mined vape from the kids in Congo. Yeah. What's this? Oh, this is just my iPhone from the evil corporation Apple that contributes to unethical labor every day. Oh, what's this? Oh, this is a Shein shirt, but I got it from a thrift store, so it's actually okay. You should kill me. Yeah, because you just shopped at Target. The point of this video is to point out hypocrisies people make every day when people are just trying to live, not excusing overconsumption and unethical labor and shopping at those places. Thank you.
There are 3 unspoken words attached to every call to boycott. If you're able. It is impossible to be a perfect activist. That doesn't mean that there's no point in doing anything. This is not all or nothing. Do not let perfect be the enemy of good. Or rather, do not let perfect be the enemy of doing anything at all. The thought of there are no ethically pure companies should not then be followed up with, so you should give up and do nothing at all. Boycotting is useless and you're a hypocrite. That is something a company would tell you to manufacture apathy. Do you know why they would do that? Because boycotts work. No ethical consumption under capitalism means that you should consume as little as possible. Beware both the there's no point in doing anything because I can't be perfect mentality and you can't be perfect, why do anything at all trains of thought. Both of them serve the same end goal, which is to convince you to do nothing. In the first instance, it's a defense of their lack of desire to do it, plain and simple. And in the second, it's a classic case of entryism, divide and conquer. Shame people out of the actions they're already taking because there's no point in trying, and make them feel alienated from the people that they're supposed to be organizing with. Good boycotts have a specific focus, as in one company, and a specific goal, like the BDS list. In fact, this page on the BDS movement's website is very thorough and specific about what these terms mean, like pressure targets and organic boycott targets, and the efficacy of boycotting. I would recommend going and checking it out, especially before you jump on here to criticize boycotting. Another important note, because I see this word getting misused to serve people's comfort and corporate bottom lines, it is not a privilege to decrease your spending. It is not a privilege to shop less. It is not a privilege to keep wearing the clothes that you already have in your closet. However, it is a privilege to deliberate in the global north whether or not you should cancel your Disney Plus subscription, or maybe skip skip going to McDonald's and choose somewhere else to eat out, while people in the global south suffer under the regimes that these corporations support, while your own neighbors suffer from the policies that these corporations lobby for and fund. It is not your duty to complete the work, to single-handedly stop all of the horrors from happening in the world, to fully commit to being a perfect consumer, but we are not free to desist from trying. Not if we want to make the world a better place to live in. If you cannot participate in a boycott of a certain grocery store chain because, say, you live in a food desert, that's not a call for no one to boycott. In fact, it exemplifies the need for everyone else around you to participate in the boycott, to make up for the fact that you can't. That's why it's not helpful to announce that because you can't boycott something, it's a bad boycott, and everyone is privileged for participating in it and they shouldn't do it. Do you see now how that argument only benefits harmful, predatory corporations? Even if you cannot fully commit to something, like, say, boycotting Amazon, because it's the only place you can afford to buy medical supplies for your disability. You can still choose to, for example, not make any non-essential purchases from there. That's something, and something is always better than nothing.
Of course, it's a bunch of fucking liberal white people who think that boycotting is a privilege. Like, of course y'all think that, because this is coming from a group of people who've never had to face systemic oppression a day in their life. So of course to you, boycotting is a privilege. Meanwhile, my people, my ancestors, they boycotted the bus system when many of them didn't have any cars ever in their life, walking 10 miles back and forth to work on a daily motherfucking basis, piling up at the back of the motherfucking bus. You guys, the reason why boycotting is a privilege to you is because y'all aren't actually fighting for anything, right? The things that y'all are quote unquote fighting for actually don't really affect you. So of course it's boycotting to you because you're fighting for freedoms that are not yours, that haven't been taken. You fighting for immigrants, it doesn't really affect you. You fighting for black people and police brutality, it doesn't really affect you. So of course to you, boycotting is a privilege because you are not on the opposite end of the people who do not have the privileges, whose lives are actually being affected. Boycotting is a privilege, is the crazy, most white supremacist shit I ever heard. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even gonna pretend to sugarcoat it. Only someone who has white power, right, who exists at the top of the food chain could believe that fighting for your rights is a fucking privilege. The boycotts this year were Target and Starbucks. In what world do you live in? Is it a privilege to not shop at fucking Starbucks or Target? I promise you, in no place where poor people live is there a fucking Target or a goddamn Starbucks. Like, what the fuck are y'all actually talking about? You want to know what's a privilege to protest? It's a privilege to protest for a bunch of white people to be protesting, getting in cops' faces, and not being beat to fucking death. Hosed down. That's the fucking privilege. That's the fucking privilege. You know, white people, y'all actually don't use y'all privilege to fight for a fuck ass thing, because the privilege is you don't really actually have anything to fucking fight for. Like, that's the real privilege, to not actually be engaged with these boycotts in a genuine way. That's the fucking privilege. Like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? Boycotting is a privilege. It's not a privilege would be to not have to fight in the beginning. That would be the fucking privilege. It's not a privilege to fight. I'm telling you right now, white people are never beating the performative activist allegations. All of you are very performative in nature. Y'all get dressed for boycotts and go to boycotts, have zero demands, have zero goals. You just go out there so you can pretend to actually give a fuck. You don't actually fucking care. And this is why black people said they weren't participating. Because we're not putting our lives on the line to align ourselves with a group of people who actually don't really give a fuck. You want to pretend to give a fuck. You want to matter the way you've seen black people and people of color fight for things in the past and how inspiring that was. But those aspirations, guess what they came with? Sacrifices. Because that's what it means to fight for something you believe in. You have to sacrifice shit. But y'all wouldn't know that because you never in your fucking lives had to actually believe in anything or fight for anything. What a fucking disgrace. I'm actually sick to my fucking stomach that every day y'all get on this app and pretend like you give a fuck about something and you give a fuck about nothing but yourselves. Yikes.
Boycotting is empowering, and that's a perspective that I really want to bring into this conversation, is that as a consumer, it brings that power back to me because I get to decide where I am putting my money. And I do not want to be putting my money into a billion-dollar corporation that is funding war crimes, that is ruining our environment, that has ties to weapons manufacturers. Why would I do that with my earned money? And as we are calling your representatives, as we are attending protests, this is something that we can do. This is something that brings the power back to the people. So I don't understand why we wouldn't want to participate in that. And another thing that boycotting has brought to light is the fact that our society is so enthralled with overconsumption that we are constantly needing new things. And essentially, society itself is a walking ad. When we are walking outside of our homes, we are seeing billboards selling us things. Every single time that we are on our phones, we are being sold something. When we take a look at influencers, they are walking ads. So boycotting has made me realize as well, I don't always need new things. And then what am I buying from? Who am I buying from? I would rather use what I have. If I do need something new, I would rather support a small business. I'd rather buy secondhand clothes. I'd rather attend clothing sales and so many different options rather than, again, buying from these billion-dollar corporations. We are just making the rich richer as they are killing all of us.
This whole boycotting is a privileged thing. I don't think it's as black and white as everybody's trying to make it. And I truthfully believe that's where the problem lies. Baby Bangs is getting drugged through the fucking mud right now. For the fact of the matter, she said it is a privilege to not be able to go to Target, to not be able to go to Starbucks. Because in some places, they really only have Target. I'm not even talking about Starbucks. We're gonna stick here with Target. You don't have to fucking go to Starbucks at all. You can boycott fucking Starbucks. You can. Y'all choose not to. There are a plethora of different fucking avenues and options before you choose Starbucks. Y'all choose Starbucks though. That's why I'm gonna focus on Target. There are small places in a lot of places in America to where Target and or Walmart is the only store. I live in one of these small ass towns to where Walmart was the closest, not even Target. But the thing about that is I did not only have Walmart to choose from. There was usually Kroger, there was usually Aldi, or a mom and pop fucking general store. So I do understand to where some people really, they can only access Target. But that is not the case for a lot of y'all that are choosing not to boycott. You would just rather not go to Aldi's over your Target. Or your mom and pop general store, you would rather not go to that than Target. And that's why you're choosing Target. But you could easily not be going to Target. Just like y'all could easily not be going to Starbucks, but you choose to. But like I said in the beginning, it's not all black and white. Some of these motherfuckers really only have Target and they can't boycott that shit. Can't boycott Walmart. Because money-wise, accessibility-wise, it would be a lot more of a hassle for some of these people. Because yes, it is a privilege for you to be able to be like, oh, I can't go to the store because I have other options. You know, it's a privilege to be able to say, you know, I'm not going to spend my money at A, B, C, or D. And you have that option to do so. But a lot of people are also irritated with old girl for the fact of the matter, she's hearting comments, liking comments, pretty much saying that boycotting is a waste of time. And there's no point to boycott and anti-boycott. When that in itself is weird as fuck. Just because you shop at Target and you don't want to fucking boycott. I don't think people are misunderstanding what she said either. She said exactly what the fuck she meant. It's just not as black and white as everybody's trying to make it, in my opinion, at least.
I think everybody who's talking about this, like, boycotting is a privilege or it's not a privilege type conversation. I don't think a lot of y'all have seen, like, actual food deserts from people from the, to boycott is a privilege type side. Whenever we're talking about, like, boycotting is a privilege, we're not talking about, like, oh my God, the only option that we have is to go to Starbucks or McDonald's. If you have seen a food desert or if you've been like in the rural areas of the South, because that's where I'm from, that's where my family's from, that's where we drive through to get to my family and shit. If you've seen what it looks like in the South in food deserts, it's usually like a Family Dollar, a Piggly Wiggly, or like a fucking Walmart and within like a 10-mile radius. And those are the only options to go and get food. Nobody is going to be in a food desert with a Starbucks. People who are in a food desert and don't have any other options but to go to the Family Dollar or to Walmart aren't going to go to a Starbucks because there's most likely not a Starbucks in that area. So I don't really know what y'all mean by like boycotting Starbucks or McDonald's is a privilege. Whenever people who would not have access to like proper food sources wouldn't have that in their vicinity. Yeah, you know what I mean? Now, if we get into talking about like certain products, buying certain products in a store, yeah, that is a privilege. But it is more so privileged to have those type of stores within your area and having the choice to boycott them rather than not having them in the area at all. I don't know what y'all are trying to get out of this conversation.
I'm going to say this just right now. If I see any more comments that are to the effect of, it is a privilege to boycott, you are getting blocked so hard your grandchildren won't be able to speak to me. Especially because most of the people talking about it are talking about blatant luxuries like Starbucks. You will not be weaponizing progressive terminology to me to try to cover up the fact that your capacity for solidarity and activism ends the second that you are slightly inconvenienced. That is your right to comfort. That is not privilege. You have more power and privilege in your eyelashes than any Gazan will ever have in their entire life. So to sit here in the global north and to go, well, I can't cancel my Disney Plus membership because I really need to have a TV show on when I'm eating, and not all of us have the privilege to boycott. I wish I could show you how you sound. I think we need to take the word privilege away until y'all figure out how to use it, because this weaponization, this co-opting of the term is doing nothing. I mean, we should have taken it away as soon as y'all started talking about, oh, sustainability is a privilege, when sustainability is a practice the poorest among us have been doing for centuries because we cannot afford to be wasteful. If you think not going to a coffee chain where a latte is $5 a pop and wearing your clothing until it is literally rags is privilege, I don't know what to tell you. You lost the plot.
Okay, so I've been seeing this discourse like everywhere, and it relates a lot to me personally, so I'm going to talk about it. The Baby Bangs girl is right. Boycotting is a privilege. And if you think that boycotting isn't a privilege, you are inherently privileged. I get my prescriptions filled at Target. The only options for me are Target or Walmart. And I get all of my groceries from Walmart because Publix is expensive as hell. And I live in Florida, so, we get Publix, but it's expensive as hell. So I get all of my groceries from Walmart because it's what I can afford, because I'm disabled and I don't have a job, because nobody will hire me. A lot of my medical supplies come from Amazon because it's the only place I can get them from. I have to support these companies to survive. There is nothing else I can do. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Especially not late-stage capitalism, which is where we are right now. So, if you say that boycotting isn't a privilege, I would love for you to explain where I can get my prescriptions from. Where do I get my prescriptions from? Where do I shop where it won't break the bank every time I try and get groceries? Where do I get my medical supplies from that isn't Amazon? Because right now Amazon is the only place I can get them from. And most people who say that boycotting isn't a privilege don't have to think about those things. They can afford to shop at a grocery store that isn't evil. They don't need to fill their prescriptions at a specific place because it's the only spot that they can get those kinds of things. They don't need to order medical supplies off of Amazon. It is a very deeply nuanced conversation, and the internet has completely lost nuance. It's become a mob mentality of sorts, and it is very tiring. The types of things that people will say about people like me, because I have to go to Walmart, because I have to go to Target, because I have to order from Amazon, it kind of offends me a little bit. And I know it's just the internet, so I shouldn't think about it like that, but it really does. I want to stop using these companies. I want to avoid it. I want to shop small, shop locally, but I can't. I can't afford it. My health will decline if I do what they say that I should do. And people really miss that level of nuance. Please think deeply about your opinions before talking shit about people who disagree with you or can't do what you say that they should do. Great conversation.
What this Baby Banks discourse has taught me is that there's a reason Trump is still in office and that he's still getting away with passing the most extreme shit and allowing the most extreme shit to happen in America. Our generation is literally fucking useless and cooked. Y'all can't fucking do anything. Y'all will sit there and fucking complain rather than just like not buy something. Like it's Obviously, nuance exists in certain situations, but it's beyond me.
The phrase boycotting is a privilege is already doing damage to our community, and it's going to do so much more because of the principles we've instilled on social media and our internal dilemmas of our own principles. I'm going to talk about a lot of shit today, and I'm just going to have to categorize them. And right now, we're focusing on boycotting. It's not that simple, but it's also not that complicated. We don't need 150 people to tell us that boycotting is a privilege. Because let's say that this is the only resource and access that a certain person in the middle of nowhere has to use, and just like we don't need 300 people to come online and tell us that boycotting is a necessity, because it is both. On top of everything, most forms of boycotting, if not all of them, is an inconvenience and a sense of community appreciation. Majority of the time, you're not only boycotting for yourself, you're doing it for a purpose, for a reason. You're doing it to help somebody else as well. Could really focus on the principle behind boycotting. Let's think about spiritual fasting. Majority of the time people fast is because they're trying to gain something. They're trying to learn something, to listen to something. There's something they're trying to gain. And so they alter their convenient patterns and stop doing something that they normally do, social media, music, sex, whatever it is, so that they can obtain something bigger and better. Now, while yes, fasting is isolated, it does give you pivotal time to learn a new skill. When you fast from social media, you realize just how much time you spend on social media. Often causes the person to recognize this and bring in a new hobby of substance in their life. Not to say that the patterns they had before were inherently wrong, but bringing in this new change causes them to have a better pattern in their life. Bringing it back to boycotting, we're not asking people for the most. We're not asking people to stop using cars and stop using buses. We're not asking people to quit their jobs even. Because nowadays, majority of the boycotts is don't watch these people's platforms, don't support these people's platforms, don't buy this product, don't buy at that store, don't go to that cafe or whatever, i.e. Starbucks. Well, of course, if you live in the middle of nowhere next to Courage the Cowardly Dog and Walmart is the only store you have in the vicinity, it is what it is. You may not be able to boycott Walmart. You're having a really hard time making ends meet and Goya is the only product that you can afford at the time to feed yourself and your family. It is what it is. You may not be able to boycott Goya. There's always something you can do, right? And the reason why boycotting is a privilege is going to hinder us is because majority of people are lazy and nobody wants it bad enough because majority of people are hopeless about this situation changing for the better. In turn, it increases their laziness because what changes can I make by not going to Starbucks, by not going to Target? I'm only spending $15 there anyway. Of course, one person not going to Starbucks doesn't really make a difference, but an entire community of people boycotting Target makes a great difference. An entire group of people no longer supporting a company because they use AI makes a difference. Bringing it back to the principle behind fasting, people fast because they want something. Well, of course, in a lot of religions, people fast because they need to. A lot of times people fast because they really want something. And that's human nature. When people want something, they're willing to go the extra mile to get it. In turn, how bad do you really want this? How bad do you want that free healthcare? How bad do you want these companies to start respecting you as the consumer? How bad do you want it? Well, yes, it might be significantly difficult for you to boycott Starbucks. You don't necessarily need a Netflix, Hulu, and a Disney Plus account. Because while yes, it's illogical for you to throw away your phone because you're boycotting Apple, you don't need the latest iPhone. The purpose to withhold your contribution towards a certain business, company, or whatever else you want to call it. The most it can do to you is inconvenience you. If withholding from that business hinders your life greatly, you may not be able to boycott. If withholding from that business causes you to have to wake up an hour early to learn how to make a cafe macchiato, whatever bullshit you drink, then that's part of boycotting. Similar to a fast, a boycott never really lasts forever. You make your point with your community, the point is heard, and either you guys just shift to a completely different company in our situation, or the company listens and oblige. Laziness and hopelessness are the two sentiments that stops majority of people from actively boycotting. I think before anybody engages in any kind of boycotting conversation, you need to look at what boycotting is and why would you boycott whatever company, brand, or whatever you want to boycott. I believe before engaging in any kind of boycott discourse, first learn what boycotting is, actual boycotting, and then learn why you want to boycott this specific brand, company, or hinga-dinga-durgan. I can tell you specifically, I will never go to Starbucks again because A, their coffee's ass, but really the real reason is because of how they treat their workers. I really did enjoy going to Starbucks and I haven't had a green tea lemonade in forever, but I did learn how to make it. While it came as an inconvenience to me, it was just that, an inconvenience. Now I drive by Starbucks and I don't even look at them because I have ultimately taken them out of my lifestyle. And it might not be the same for every single thing you boycott. Like Target is a bit more difficult for me because that's where I get my personal body items, bras and underwears and whatever. So now I have to do a bit more research when it comes to buying these kind of products for myself. Amazon is another brand that I'm struggling with because if I cannot find something in my city in person, Amazon normally has it. It's not black and white, and it's not as easy to do with every single brand or company, but it's still worth looking into if you expect to make change.
Boycotting can only be considered a privilege when you are asked to boycott an essential good, right? Target is a grocery store / retailer with essential goods, but the difference there is that they are not even close to the most affordable location to do that. Okay, there's not a single thing that you can get at Target that you cannot get at some other retailer that is probably also less expensive. Something like coffee, obviously you can live without, but that teeters on the line of like something that is essential, right? Like millions and millions of people have coffee. Starbucks is not the sole provider of yummy coffee. You know what I mean? Like, to boycott Starbucks does not come from a place of privilege. I'm sorry. That's like the woke versus woke argument against like, you know, boycotting things. But there's also the like conservative argument of like, oh, it doesn't even work. I recall like this comment left by this like dumb conservative creator, like, oh, like it's only 1% of the stores. Yeah, the boycotts are working, okay? Target and Starbucks are like trying to team up to create a solution to all of their lost profits. Like, it is happening. That shit works. Does it make you a terrible person to buy CeraVe from Target or something? No. But if you have the ability to drive to a Walmart instead, maybe you should.
There's a woman on here that said boycotting is a privilege, and I have a lot of thoughts about this as somebody who talks about boycotting, labor organizing, like just community organizing in general. But one thing I will say is like I was not on TikTok at the time that the bean soup theory like went viral or whatever. But after having been on here a lot, I realized just how deeply that is like a problem. And I think it's a problem too because you guys assume that if a video comes up on your For You page, whether or not it's going viral, whether or not a lot of conversations are happening about it, you believe it directly pertains to you when it doesn't. Nobody should have to make a million disclaimers for your specific situation because you don't feel included in the conversation. And I think a lot of it too is like there's a lot of conversations where people are like, you're trying to moral police people, you're trying to purity test people. And I think what it really is y'all's morals and your feelings are hurt. Y'all are feeling hurt. Y'all are feeling bad that you aren't able to meet these imaginary standards that you feel like you have to meet because X, Y, or Z TikToker said something about a specific situation to them. So now you feel shitty. And instead of just working through those feelings of feeling shitty about why you can't engage with this shit, you project those feelings onto others. And it's very strange. I just made a similar video about this too, though. But we have to understand there is a lot of good that comes with boycotting, and to describe it as a privilege really undermines the intention of it. And it's such an American lens. Like you could only really have that take if you went through the American education system. And to be fair with you and to be quite honest with you, it does also make sense because when we talk about things like the Montgomery bus boycott, it is taught very briefly as a part of if you have like a civil rights portion in your history courses. It is taught typically pretty briefly because you're trying to cover a lot within the civil rights movement. But it's frustrating because then it makes people think that these people weren't inconveniencing themselves every day. These people weren't being attacked every single fucking day by racist ass white people. These were black people who were literally trying to change a violent racist system and were met with so much violence and racism for years just to get the changes that they want to see. So no, boycotting is not a privilege, but it is something that can be difficult to do when you don't have the means to do it, or you live in a community in which it is not viable. I also talked about this in a different video, but it is also important to note that like oftentimes when there are active boycotts being called, whether or not it's groups who are fighting against the anti-DEI rollback, so like targeting companies like Target, Home Depot, all these other corporations, Walmart, Or it is like the BDS movement that is going after or like corporations like Chevron, McDonald's, like all of these other things. Or Starbucks too, which also overlaps with the DEI, as well as McDonald's also overlapping. So there's times where you can find overlaps for multiple reasons to boycott that can help push you or get you there. I also talk about this a lot. It is not a race. It is not, I'm not competing with other people. I am trying to say, where can I, knowing how I spend my money, knowing the ads I watch, how can I effectively hurt the pockets of a corporation that is harming my community or harming other communities in which I care about, or harming me directly? I implore people to engage with actual theory around boycotting and around labor organizing and around all these things that does not solely come from being on TikTok and engaging in TikTok comments, because that is something that is really scaring me. And I really hope that we get to a place where we stop fucking doing that.
I liked you, Baby Bangs girl. Why are we making anti-boycott content? Okay, you made up a really specific niche scenario in which shopping at Target might be acceptable if you're willing to compromise your morals for a tampon. You need to pay your bills. The video is over a minute long. It's like 80,000 likes. You're definitely making a bag from that video at the cost of encouraging people to boycott Target, which is because they're literally anti-DEI, anti-people of color, pro-Trump. The red in Target is not like a communist red. It's a MAGA red. So why did we need to make a video excusing shopping at Target? Calling people that call for boycotts the most annoying people you know. And liking these comments like I'm confused. This was not productive, it's giving a wing. If you're able to understand the gravity of living under fascism and having people be discriminated on the basis of race, and then you urge skin itching, you need to make a video pointing out hypocrites, disparaging people from actually partaking in boycotts, making people who partake in boycotts look super fucking annoying and privileged, which they're not, okay? It's actually work to partake in a boycott. Yeah, it's hard. Maybe you're gonna have to walk an extra 20 minutes to a Dollar Tree instead of a Target to get your tampons, but you're gonna do it because you care about DEI. If you really understand how serious the situation is, you would not post a video like this. And you're at least pretending to care about kids in cobalt mines in the Congo who would suffer from the perception of this video. So
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why you guys keep coming on here and explaining why you can't do boycotts as if anyone gives a fuck. As if anyone genuinely cares. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. Everybody needs to be the center of attention all the time. If you don't care and you don't want to do it, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Because you're not going to convince me that the only way that you can eat right now is a Starbucks or a McDonald's. This is not difficult. This is the most do-nothing of all do-nothing activisms. And you just don't want to do it. You don't like being inconvenienced. You don't like having to do stuff that's slightly inconvenient for you. You don't care enough. And that's fine. I mean, it's not, but it's fine. It's not a special or unique trait that makes you particularly more evil than your neighbor or your cousin. Plenty of people just don't care. Why do you need to come on here and make a sermon about it? Jesus Christ. People used to get spit on for their beliefs, and you can't stop going to McDonald's? Ugh.
I dare you to tell one of the hundreds of Black Americans from the 1960s that they were privileged.
And I just want to add on to that. In what world did boycotting become a privilege? In what world do you think you have a right to tell people who boycott that they're privileged? The creator I Stitch brought up an excellent point about the Montgomery bus riots. Y'all can have a discussion in the comments in that one, but there's stuff I just wanted to add. I don't think y'all understand that it's not a privilege to have to fight for your rights. People do not only just boycott random places, this place, that place. People have to boycott their own jobs. Let me repeat that, their own jobs. A lot of people that boycott their own jobs do not have a second option. They just do that. They have to. The second option is not guaranteed. They have a side hustle. Most do not. How do you think those people are surviving? People just have lost the idea of self-sacrifice, inconvenience, and prioritize selfishness above all else. But they hate to admit that. Boycotts origins did not stem from privilege and do not come from privilege and still aren't a privileged thing to do. There are privileged people who have to boycott, who do boycott. It's a necessary thing for them. But you cannot develop the concept of something that goes beyond, oh, well, I don't even like that place, so I'm not going to go there. That's easy. So now look at me boycotting. You just can't fathom that you have to actually put an effort to do it. I'll even say people are more lenient and understanding and make way more exceptions for people now than ever when they say they can't do X, Y, Z. No genuine person who fights for change, and that's why I don't think this person exists, would criticize someone so heavily to the point, oh, like they went to Target to get tampons. Where criticism does come into play is when you're a person who has a car, you're a person who has actually another store nearby you, less than 5 minutes away. With a little bit more gas, you could make it there. You know you got the gas to do it, and you chose to go there. You just do not like being confronted with your own actions. But like I said again, people make exceptions more than ever now. Like, example for an exception, people are willingly friends with people with different political views. And you, even in the past, that still applies really, you know, because you got to get somewhere. But that's what I'm saying, like, political views can teeter-totter on human rights. But you see people being friends with people who have different perspectives all the time. People are more understanding than ever and give people hella exceptions all the time. You are not oppressed because you do not take the time to boycott. You are not oppressed because people fight for boycotting and say certain things to you when you are doing something actively funding a place mindlessly. You are not oppressed. You are not oppressed because you cannot stand inconvenience. I would rather you say, point blank period, I don't give a fuck. Stand on that selfishness. But I want you to know one thing. People who boycott and go out of their way to do so are not acting like they're better than you. They are. They're better than me and you. I pointed the wrong way, but you get what I'm saying. The video that Baby Bang's girl is getting, the reason it's getting criticism is because, truth be told, it does nothing for the conversation. It's such an exaggerated, satirical view of this type of person that I've never even seen exist. It just brings me back to like 2017 anti-SJW content. And for that tiny little minuscule group that y'all swear does exist, who wouldn't understand if a homeless person had to eat at McDonald's, there's a large majority of you, and this applies to almost the general population outside of people who put an effort to boycott, who do not try. But refocusing, like I said, it does nothing for the conversation. It feeds into a specific pipeline that isn't beneficial for anybody. People are in this girl's comments having a noticeable difference from her that I also noticed in Baby Bang's girl's comment section are a certain type of person who I think just simply may not realize that life doesn't come with at least one guaranteed privilege. You aren't guaranteed to have, oh, at least you got the financial privilege. At least you got the color privilege. At least you got the sex privilege. No, babe. At least you got the sexuality privilege. No. What would be an inconvenience for you to walk that extra mile, even though the U.S. in general is not really a walkable place, and, you know, hella people have cars, even though there is people who don't have cars, me included. It's just like, I don't know. I made an older video like last night of this, and I thought I'd make a more organized one today, but I am a little bit busy. So this is what I came up with, and it's still long as hell. I drew out no points, like wrote them out, but I hope you get what I mean.
I dare you to tell one of the hundreds of black Americans from the 1960s that they were privileged because they were able to boycott the bus system in Montgomery for 381 days. They walked from school and back, from work and back for over a year, and you're complaining that you can't catch a bus or you can't walk a couple extra miles because you want to shop at Target? It's privilege to have to fight for our livelihoods? You know what's the real privilege? Seeing all of these boycotts, seeing all of the atrocities that these corporations are committing, and never being a part of the group that's affected. That is the real privilege. So don't sit here and say that, oh, it's a privilege to boycott. It's never a privilege to have to fight for your livelihood. You brainless, spineless freaks.
Give me just one example in the history of the United States of America where white people have come together collectively to use their power for the greater good of a marginalized community. One. But somewhere someone wants to convince me that the downtrodden whites on this app I'm supposed to listen to. Me, who comes from a people who generationally resisted, who generationally have gotten their backs kicked in, who generationally have been stripped of their names, of their culture, of their wealth, of their education and history, of their own community. Boycotting isn't a privilege. The privilege is hopping on social media and doing full dissertations as to why boycotting is a privilege. While thousands of black women have lost their jobs, while people from immigrant communities are getting kidnapped off the street, while folks at home and abroad are being massacred in 4K, while the elderly, disabled, and children are losing SNAP benefits when we have millions upon billions of dollars going overseas to give that food to other people. No, you cannot boycott every brand, everywhere, all at once. That is not what a targeted and concentrated boycott even looks like. And if you are white in this country, the only thing that you have done is benefited off the toil of people of color. So on a very minute level, if you couldn't even boycott, at the very least, you could shut the fuck up.
Boycotting's a privilege. Yeah. I have the privilege to boycott. I have the privilege to not have bombs raining down on me every night as I go to bed. Yeah, boycotting's a privilege because I have the privilege to boycott. My home has not been bombed. My entire family has not been killed. Hundreds of my family members have not been slaughtered. Hind Rajab, 6-year-old Palestinian girl in Gaza, did not ask to be born into this world a Palestinian in Gaza, did she? But she was. And she was murdered by 355 bullets into the car that she was hiding in from Israeli soldiers, from Israeli tanks. And she was hiding in this car. Who was in the car with her? Her family members who had already been shot to death by the IDF. That is the story of Hind Rajab. That is what happened to her. Israel bombed the ambulance that went to go rescue her. IDF literally has the nickname baby killers because they've murdered so many children. Not to mention the most child amputees in modern history. I'm so sick of this boycotting discourse, and as this is all happening, people are still being fucking slaughtered. So can we, enough?
I'm boycotting the boycott list because the concept of the boycott list is rooted in white privilege. A lot of the companies on the boycott list are cheaper fast food places, food banks, homeless shelters, things like that. And it's very, very privileged for you to not be able to patronize these businesses, to not spend your money at these businesses, because you don't have to. These businesses cater to people of a lower socioeconomic status. Also, making any sort of political statement at all is a display of privilege, because people who have to work to support themselves often don't have the mental energy to explore politics or be able to make a political statement. And these political statements also put them in a very dangerous position that they're not able to afford, because what if that affects their income stream? So while I understand the sentiment behind the boycott list, I think we have to view it through an intersectional lens and understand that the boycott list alienates and ultimately oppresses people of color who also tend to be people of lower socioeconomic standing.
I want to circle back to what I said about boycotting being a privilege, because now the conversation is kind of becoming trendy. A lot of my neutrals are getting involved. There's people on both sides of the spectrum. And so I want to specifically talk about from my perspective. First and foremost, I think there's a problem on this app where people try to force themselves into boxes and force themselves into conversations, even when it's not applicable. The way this algorithm's set up makes it seem like everything on your For You page is catered to you and directed towards you, and that's not always the case. And I also think we need to hold space for multiple truths to exist. When I say boycotting is a privilege, that's not supposed to be in a singular lens. There's supposed to be nuance to it. Boycotting is a privilege, but not boycotting is also a privilege. You know what I mean? And I think this topic, people are kind of leading into logical fallacies and changing the topic where they're talking about the Montgomery bus boycott, which is a whole different formula of boycott. And then people are talking about specifically Starbucks and Target, which are specific boycotts. And I think people are forgetting that disabled people exist, poor people exist, food deserts exist. And I think all of it is leading into a very classist and ableist rhetoric. I think we all need to do as much as we can when we can. And if you are doing mass consumerism and hauls and you're an influencer going to Target and drinking your Starbucks, that is privilege and that is problematic. But if you're a single mother with a disabled child and all you can afford is McDonald's, or you live in a food desert where Walmart is the only store around, or even Target's the only store around, I don't think you should be judged in the same lens as someone like me who has more options like Aldi's or something. And so I really just wanted to conclude in that way, because I really think this conversation is getting away from people. And I think it's hard to have a 60-second video kind of like wrap up this whole discussion that would normally be like a 16 long week like class about boycotts and like the history of them and the importance of them. And we can't talk about transportation boycotts and talking about corporation boycotts and talk about like industry boycotts, because they're all different. And that's where nuance is important. Accessibility is a conversation, disability is a conversation, poverty is a conversation, and all these conversations can't be in one single video in one single comment section. And liking a comment accidentally isn't the same as agreeing with, like, you know, capitalism. So I just want to say that.
So the other day I was tagging a video talking about the privilege of being able to boycott. And the creator, I'm not going to tag him because I feel like they get a lot of hate anyways, but the creator pointed to disability being one of the reasons why somebody may or may not be able to boycott something. And I want to talk about this from a very superficial level and then kind of dig down a little bit deeper into it. And I'm going to talk about brands, particularly boycott safe brands, and their exclusion of disabled people. So in December, I actually got a PR package from a company called Guide Beauty. Guide Beauty's chief creative officer is Selma Blair, which, if you know, she was caught making Islamophobic comments on Instagram. Now, I had gotten this PR package back in December. I think I was away when I got it. And luckily, my ADHD finally worked in my favor, because by the time I was actually ready to make the PR video, I had already seen those comments and decided not to do anything. Instead, I reached out to my management. A lot of people are like, you have management? Yes, I do. I have management. And I reached out to my management and I said, can you go down a list of boycott safe brands and see if they're willing to collaborate on an accessible beauty line or something that's accessible to disabled consumers in the beauty space. And it's fair to say that I'm not a beauty creator, but I'm personally of the mind where, like, if it's not me, I would love to make connections and make sure that people are getting the opportunities that they want. I just want to know if brands are open to actually working with disabled creators, as well as developing something for disabled consumers. My manager went down the list and contacted as many beauty brands as possible to see if they'd be willing to collaborate with a disabled person on something like this. Every single one of them said no, or said that it wasn't the time, said it wasn't, didn't have the right budget, what have you. And all of those things could be true, but that still means that Guide Beauty is going to be the place where most disabled people get their accessible beauty tools. And that is an inconsequential example. I've seen people lose aid workers, people to help them get dressed and showered and go about their day because they are pro-Palestine. There are disabled people that become homeless for their pro-Palestinian stance. But imagine there's a product or a service that you need to survive, and all of your options are boycott unsafe. And the companies that are boycott safe aren't really interested in working with you or even branding to consumers like you. Which is very ironic given the nature of what's going on in Palestine, right? Because this is a mass disabling event. And the people seeing that it's a mass disabling event would much rather say that those people's lives are over because they are now disabled than ever create a world in which disabled people are actively included. Like, I can understand why you would think that life is over once you have a disability. Are you one of the people making it difficult for disabled people to live our lives publicly and inclusively? And this also very much so goes with the Congo too, right? Disabled people use a lot of technology to get through our everyday life. And while I personally am going to cut back on the amount of new technology that I buy in solidarity with the Congo, if somebody's deaf and the software that they use to navigate and translate their world only exists on new phones, are you willing to learn ASL so they don't have to get that new phone? Part of the reason why disabled people lean on technology, on these boycott unsafe brands and all these things, is because we've designed a society where private corporations take the lead on actually designing inclusive societies. And it's between them and disabled people to make things work. But for the most part, everyday society very much so does not really interact with disabled people.
Well, I just want you to know that for some people, boycotting is a privilege, and not everybody can afford to boycott Target or Walmart. Sometimes it has stuff they need. Sometimes it's a distance thing. Sometimes we just can't get to other stores. So I just want you to know it's a privilege.
Oh, cool. Is that your situation?
I mean, no, but it is a hypothetical.
So if you're not in that demographic, why are you saying this?
Well, because it is true. It's okay to say that you're a little bit inconvenienced and you don't necessarily want to go out of your way to find a replacement for something that you use on a daily basis, right? That's okay. That's human. I'm not going to dogpile you for that. I mean, yeah, I guess it is like a little bit inconvenient for me. That's cool and I get that, but I would rather you just say that rather than using other people's plights as a hypothetical as to why you cannot boycott yourself. I don't think you're crazy for feeling that way. I'm sure a lot of people are inconvenienced. And boycotts are doing what you can when you can. And listen, I'm human too. I'm not asking you to change overnight, but I think it's important to be aware of that. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I guess I do need to be a little bit more aware of that. But what about Starbucks though? I know we talked about groceries, but what about Starbucks? Okay, see, that's just something you're doing by choice.
Baby Banks girl and being anti-boycott, and also the idea of boycotting being a privilege. This is a 3-tiered cake, y'all. Get ready to dig in, because like I'm about to get to each and every single layer and the buttercream in between. Whenever conversations like this start on the internet, I always go to watch the original, right? Because in the original, the whole point was she's drawing comparisons to people who are hypercritical, not just like casually talking about it, extremely vitriolic, like, oh, you should keep yourself if you don't boycott. Oh, you're evil and whatever if you don't boycott. And then talking about how they get vapes all the time with like temporary batteries in them, talking about the Congo. Now, I gotta be real, I do feel a certain type of way with people using specifically like Black and African issues as like a gotcha moment. Like, and that's me. I just feel a certain type of way. She's definitely still could have just talked about like over consumerism in general and people being so particular about like boycotting whilst they're like actively buying things online and buying like really cheap made products. Like, the point would have still been made without using Black people as your crutch. That's just me. But the whole point of the video is the fact that it's like a big contradiction. You're talking to me about boycotting whilst you're actively participating in things in which are also actively harming our environment, the socioeconomical situations of different people across the globe. Like, weighing, why are you shaming me for this when I went to get a necessity, right? And I get it, but in particularly for Target, I feel like it's a bit more, it's not a black and white conversation. That's the bottom line. There's two things to this, right? One, where like, yes, I'm agreeing with Baby Banks, like, yeah, like, why are you criticizing me and being so hypercritical in a way in which is not conductive to actually helping the boycott movement? You're doing this to shame people. You're doing this to feel moral superiority, not because you genuinely care about what's going on, right? Get that. The other part is people not being willing to inconvenience themselves. And it's not just like inconvenience themselves in terms of finding places that sell essential goods, but also this goes into like a conversation that people had a long time ago about being there for friends, being willing to go out of your way for the people around you. Because we fundamentally do not have a structured understanding within American society of being sociable, like genuinely like being able to, hey, can you take me to the grocery store real quick, because like I ain't got a car, I ain't got a car and I need groceries, right? So you can go to some place that is a lot like a Cub Foods, in which it's like farmers centered or something like that, you know what I mean? Calling up people and people being able to pick up your phone calls and to do the things that you're asking them to. Well, I don't want to feel like a burden. It's a part of life. You're supposed to be able to interact with people and be able to live in a homogenized way in which, yes, you'll be a little bit inconvenienced, but that's it. You're just slightly inconvenienced to help somebody who you care for. Should you not want to, like, what? So there's that aspect, but there's also the aspect of inconveniencing yourself to take the effort to do research, look around you, see if there's any way for you to shop anywhere else. No one who's making arguments that they can only shop at Target have ever actually took the time to study bus routes to see if there's any way for them to get anywhere else. I'm telling you, like, they might say, well, it's the only one in my neighborhood, and like, that's that. I know, because I know how the internet works. Now, say you have done this, and this is the only place in a 100-mile radius for you to get groceries. This does not apply to you, right? If you live in a food desert and the only place that you can go to is Target and a Dollar General, that's what you need to get to survive. But you wouldn't be posting about it, right? Because here's the thing. Like, it's one thing if you need certain essential things to survive, but there would be no need for you to constantly have to justify it out loud, knowing that you're just doing it to live. And knowing that like people are boycotting and you agree with those boycotts, just don't post that you're actively going to this place? Why are you putting it out there to like, is it a yield for sympathy, understanding? That's something I don't yet understand with some people, because I've seen quite a few people do this online, and it's like, well, you didn't have to say that. We wouldn't have known. No one would have known. I'm focusing back to the specific situation happening with Baby Banks. In their scenario, that would not happen if that's like an actual friend, someone that you're interacting with in real life. They would know you're going through a rough situation. You have no other ways to shop beyond the one store that's in your vicinity, which is Target. I have gone to Texas, and when I'm telling you nothing is close, as a Midwestern girl who goes and walks everywhere, bro, I was in a big shock of my life when I went, bro. I walked to a gas station. I was sweating bullets, and I was gonna walk to the Target that day, bro. I called myself an Uber. It was like $30-$40. It was so expensive. So I get it. Y'all got it rough, bro. But the people who have it rough are not going online actively saying, well, I live in a specific area and I can never get this thing, so I'm going to still shop there. You don't have to out loud say that. You can just live your life, right? And Baby Banks, like, the critique is not that people should stop boycotting. It's just that some people need to live their lives. They will, and they won't be actively posting about it online, knowing that there's a unified effort to try to at least, like, publicly push back on these companies. It's very counterintuitive for you to actively give extra underlying reasons for why you deserve grace for online points when none of these people would have known in the first place or cared if they knew your specific situation. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. It's like But again, then there's the random people online who make it their mission to posture a superiority complex of politics on you, for no reason. So I understand if you have to combat some people. Again, it goes back to why you posting in the first place. But if by happenstance there's a Target bag in the way background, and then someone starts talking to you about it, it's like, you don't know this person's individual situation. You don't know what's going on. There's no reason for you to attack people randomly online, period, public, period, for whatever reason. Like, that feels like common sense type of things, but you know, it's the internet. Common sense does not exist. So this conversation has been interesting. People have taken Baby Bang's like original like comedy video and extrapolated it to saying that she's anti-boycott, which it kind of did not give that. I feel like she could have made the exact same points without using black people in the Congo as a point, and without, in particular, using Target. It just created unnecessary tension in an argument that had grounds. But because there's so many, like I said, there's several layers to this cake, things just got a little messy. You know, people started digging in, putting their forks in it, swirling it around. So now it's like a bunch of crumbles. Everything's all crumbled up together, messed up, you know? So, yeah, that's all I have to say. I think I do have more thoughts, but I gotta go. So, bye.
It's funny how all of a sudden people don't understand how boycotting is a privilege, but that's actually the exact excuse everybody uses when people bring up being vegan or even just eating more plant-based foods. Anytime people bring up the fact that factory farms and animal agriculture negatively contributes to the environment and the people who have to work in those places, the people who have to live in those places that have these giant farms of the animals that you guys eat, everybody wants to act like that is just some huge privilege that they couldn't possibly give up. Meat, burger, chips, coffee creamer, steak, those are all so important in your life that you couldn't possibly live without them. Oh my God, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. But when somebody also brings up that exact point when it comes to the 56,000 places that you guys are saying to boycott, and when they bring up that, yeah, some towns only have a Target or Walmart, and sometimes people have to shop there, like, it kind of is what it is. You guys are villainizing her as if she just said the most evil, terrible thing when she's just speaking in reality. Some people have to go to those stores the same way that you have to buy your leather Doc Martens and your chicken Caesar salad. I don't know why everybody is hopping on their moral high horse and acting like they've never heard that boycotting is a privilege, when that is the exact thing that a lot of you use every single day to make yourself feel good about your environmental impact or your impact on different communities.
This whole conversation on boycotting just shows how out of touch you all are with the real world. Especially when you live in America, where every company and every establishment is effectively a chain or a branch of a much bigger company. And these big companies own virtually every other little company. So you can't be surprised when people are forced to continue spending their money with these companies because as Americans, we're given little choice. When a handful of companies own everything, you can't be mad at regular working people for not having a choice. And having the choice to not purchase anything from any of these companies is a privilege, especially when you take into account that the majority of working class Americans live in food deserts, both in urban and rural areas. And this system has been created by this handful of huge companies in order to eliminate the choice that we might have had. And when you take into account how expensive and unrealistic it is to have a small business these days and to keep it afloat, you can't blame people for having to go to Target or Walmart. And so many other places are owned by places like Target and Walmart. And if you live in America, you know that every town in America has the same stuff. Almost every town looks exactly the same. Just an amalgamation of strip malls, chain restaurants, and chain department stores. And even in knowing this, you still place the blame on average working class Americans instead of the huge companies who are monopolizing our lives and monopolizing the options we have in where we choose to spend our money. Why are we putting the blame on the individual who objectively has less power than these huge companies? Maybe we should be putting a bit of the blame on the companies and the people who run them, and the people who are actually funding these atrocities all around the world. I don't think it's fair to make regular people out to be evil because they don't have a choice but to spend their money with these evil companies, and also for not keeping up with every single company on a boycott list, because almost every company is on a boycott list, because that's the nature of the capitalist society that we live in today. We need to stop placing the blame on average working class citizens and start placing the blame and all the negative attention on the people who are actually orchestrating these atrocities.
100% boycotting is a privilege, and I'm saying that as somebody who's never had to wonder where their next meal is coming from and stuff. I'm literally the head chef of my house. Yeah, it's a privilege, and I'm so tired of people being like, I'm poor and I managed to go without Starbucks and Walmart and Target. Okay, that's you, especially if you live in a populated area such as Raleigh, North Carolina, Tallahassee, Florida, Ypsilanti, or Detroit, Michigan, Dearborn, whatever these kinds of places, versus somebody that lives in Junction City, Kansas, and their main mode of transportation is their bicycle, and the only time that they actually do take their car is to shopping halls, or not shopping halls, grocery halls, I'm sorry. Yeah, one of the biggest examples I see people talk about is Starbucks, and they're like, you don't need your Starbucks, just go to a local cafe, go to this other place, make your own coffee at home. Have you guys forgotten that Starbucks is one of the only places with a drive-thru? It's also one of the only cafes that consistently have a lot of syrups. Most cafes that I've been to at least only have 5 or 6 syrups. And also they don't have great hours. Like other coffee places. I've seen some that are 8 to 2 or 9 to 5 or something. I'm sure that Starbucks is open better hours. Also rewards and all this stuff, Another rebuttal always being make your own coffee at home. Who owns most of these coffees that you buy? Nestle. At least most of the convenient, cheaper coffees, coffee powder, some coffee beans, the things that you put into your coffee maker, not the ground coffee, but the coffee pods, Nestle. Oh dude, just buy a grinder and a mocha pot or espresso pot, or the thing that Muslims use, I don't know. Are you buying the grinder? And also, again, these coffee beans are usually owned by Nestle and stuff, and you can say, dude, just buy it from your local coffee shop. Would you rather buy the $8 bag of coffee beans that are this big from your local coffee shop, or the $20 one owned by Nestle that's this big? And the reason I'm harping on coffee so much, I'm very, 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 very into coffee. I have 4 different ways to make coffee. I have a coffee grinder. I'm very serious about coffee. I make my own coffee syrups. That's why I know so much about coffee. Okay, another thing that I see people talk about, of course, is Walmart, Target. Yeah, alright, you live in a populated area, you're gonna have more options. You're gonna have your Mediterranean shop with the seasonings and rice and treats and all this stuff, the world market, Asian shop, blah 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 blah. And it's probably going to be within proximity to the Walmart and Target. So you have these options. You live in a place with a gas station and a Walmart and everything else is like 40 miles away and you don't have a bus or a train. Where are you going? Where are you going? And like, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but my parents and I used to like go on these trips or whatever. I didn't really care about them, where we would go to like more southern impoverished kind of areas, and then like in the middle of this impoverished area they'd have a place for the richer people to take their vacations or whatever. And I was like, oh my god, these people are trapped. Like, there's literally nothing within like a 30-mile radius or something. It's just this little town, horseback riding, like a jerky shop, and that's it. Like, where are these people shopping genuinely? Like, are you guys forgetting that some people actually live in the middle of nowhere? Like, I'm sorry, that's not funny.
The Baby Bangs girl is right. Boycotting is a privilege. Hi, my name is Beef. I have 40 cents in my bank account right now. I go to college in a town where the only grocery store the buses go to is Walmart. Surrounding this college town is like 50 miles of barren farmland. I'm fully aware that Walmart is a bad company. Every company is a bad company, but there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, and I'm poor. I fully encourage boycotting where you can. Like, I don't get Starbucks because I don't need Starbucks. I don't get new phones because I don't need a new phone. If you vape, I highly encourage switching to a pod system because the batteries and disposables are made with cobalt. But yes, some people are poor and disabled and they cannot afford to go anywhere but the only grocery store that their town has. A lot of you are very, very privileged in being able to boycott a lot of major grocery store chains, and you need to recognize and acknowledge that privilege.
And boycotting is absolutely a privilege. I think people are responding defensively to the creator who mentioned this because they don't want to give anybody who is opting out of boycotting for a lazy reason any justification to hide behind, which I understand, but let's actually deal with the argument here and not someone's manipulation of it, which was clearly not the creator's original intent of even bringing this up. I received my first degree from an HBCU in the South, and something we always talked about in addition to boycotting is mutual aid. It would be extremely irresponsible for the church and community leaders who had the trust and the care of the livelihoods of the people who they were telling to boycott transportation. It would be irresponsible for them to do that without setting up ride shares and carpooling for them to still have their livelihoods intact. Actually gave more incentive for the city to listen to their needs because they realized that in absence of the buses, the people were going to take care of each other. Let's bring that back to these corporations. If the corporations know that we are just yelling on social media and not actually helping each other receive these products that we need, they're just going to make more deals, more coupons, more discounts to make it more tempting for people who need things to come and get them anyways, despite the boycott. The people's needs were centered while still fighting for what they deserved. Social media-led boycotts can work, and we've seen instances where companies have responded to it because social media is such a powerful tool. What I'm also saying, and along with that, is we know that doing things, virtue signaling to a certain ideology that is the mainstream ideology on social media, is a social currency. You can get followers, you can get clout, and there's, above all, there's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of being a part of the right people, the right side, being on the right side of history. And a lot of times these conversations are led by people who read a lot of theory but haven't developed praxis just yet. And the problem with trying to establish yourself as a leader, as a thought leader in a movement without any real lived experience is that there are gaps. And the gaps that we're seeing in this boycott conversation is a lack of creating structures to deliver groceries, structures to help people in need, alternatives that go beyond a green screen with your notes app with places for people to go to. Okay? It also lacks nuance in the conversation. If what I believe is truly right, I'm not going to be afraid of critique or to further the conversation. Especially in today's age where the corporations and companies that we are being told to boycott are not like back in the day where they were mom and pop shops or a government ran entity like the bus system. They're conglomerates that own, and they're conglomerates and parent companies that own other little companies that own other little companies that are all owned by the same two people. The lack of nuance is actually hurting the movement because instead of answering the questions and grappling with some of these arguments, what you're doing is you're kicking people out of the club. And what you're actually doing when you do that is turning people away who want to participate and don't know how or don't know why we're even doing this. And regardless of how left you are, participating in a boycott is a political movement. And what you're ultimately trying to do is change policy. And when you want to change policy, you need numbers, you need people. You can't just be kicking everybody out because they don't know. Go research the civil rights laws passed in the 60s and research about the coalitions that were made to pass those laws that give us the very freedoms that we enjoy today. Research who were in those coalitions. They didn't all agree. In today's age, them bills will never have been passed because as soon as somebody who wants to vote like you has one question or doesn't agree with one particular issue underneath that party, you're ready to kick them out. They are now an irredeemable enemy who can never be changed. And the problem with deeming somebody's irredeemable is that there's only so much of a pool of people we have in this country. And you keep going like this, you keep going like that, and putting people in the irredeemable pool. You don't want to reach out, you don't want to educate, you don't want to do any of the hard work that the peoples whose names you parade around in leftist theory actually did. You're going to end up with nobody. You're going to end up with exactly what we have today. I think it was an Ezra Klein podcast episode I was listening to. I forgot the name. But in that episode, they were talking about how out of control people on the left side of the ideological spectrum, how out of control they felt about what was going on in politics, that social media and the digital space was a place where they could create the rules and kind of make up for the world that they weren't seeing. So I understand the heart posture of wanting to do that. But what you're actually doing is being a cop. You're being a cop. What do you think the revolution will not be televised means? At the time that this saying was created or coined, they had the television, so that was their reference. But what they were really saying includes social media now in the modern day. The revolution will not be TikToked. It won't. Social media is an amazing tool, but it is not the town square. It is not where the real work needs to be done. You're not going to save people in the global south by boycotting through convincing people who can afford phones and who have cars in the west to choose this store instead of that store. The real work happens out here. Let's just have more nuance in conversations in regards to organizing and pushing our political agendas, because if somebody going to a store that's boycotting angers you to the point where you want to critique them or rip them apart rather than texting them or DMing them saying, can I send you a gift card for this store instead? What are your actual motives?
Anyways, welcome back. And now I have to say what I got to say. Okay? Pardon me. Boycotting is a privilege. Boycotting is a privilege. The first thing I will say is let me know what you think first in the comment section. Just a simple answer I want to get from everyone watching this video, especially for Black Americans. Because why I said especially for Black Americans is because they are the ones that have gone through the suffering, the segregation, the Jim Crow, the slavery, name it. Black Americans are literally the only people that have gone through all of this. Black Americans are still the only people that do not have any privilege because the white people tag themselves as privileged people. Although it is annoying that if you see some white folks video, they keep telling you that, oh, Black people even have privilege more than them, of which I've not seen. And just let me know in the comment section, do you think that boycotting is actually a privilege or you think it is not a privilege? But I'm going to be giving my own opinion, right? In my own opinion, boycotting has never been a privilege, right? It is something that must be done. that should be done. Now, why do people boycott? People boycott to make something good. People boycott to make that particular place they are boycotting realizing that without us, there will be no you. Let's take, for example, the braider that braided a black woman that demanded, I brought that video, I don't know if you guys have seen it, that demanded $200, that they agreed on $200 when the braiding was done. This African braider held that woman back that she have to pay extra $50, that brought some kind of back and forth, that she actually dragged her head and her hair, and a lot of people were like, we need to boycott this. Why do people boycott that particular lady? Why do they say, oh, I need to think about it if I will necessarily need to boycott this woman? And I think I don't need to boycott her. I just need to go ahead and keep braiding my hair there. After all, it's not actually affecting me, and she is the one that is closest. Nobody think about that. The first thing every single person was saying is we need to boycott, so that one, this woman will literally learn her lesson that you cannot do without my money. You cannot do without me spending. Right? So people cannot just come up and be like, let's boycott. Something must be wrong somewhere. So you cannot tell me that because the distance is very close to your house and you have to drive extra 200 miles for you to get to that particular location, that is why you just have to manageably go there. It's actually a privilege. You can tell me that. Except you have seen it as a white person that every single thing that is going to be enjoyed through this boycotting, there is going to be like 50 or 40% of black people. That's the only way a white person can come up and be like, it is none of my business. After all, it is not affecting my community. You don't have to tell me to boycott Target, because after Target, the next mall is like 2 miles away. There are people that boycott. If you watch this video very well, because I know I have a very long clip, so I don't even know the particular position, the particular minute you watch this video to, but there are people that boycott during those days, and they have to trek a lot of distance for them to get to where they are getting to. Boycotting a bus. So to every single white person saying, oh, it's okay, it's a privilege to boycott, you have to choose where to boycott and where not to boycott. You have to consider where it is being located before you boycott. You're doing it because it didn't affect you. Let's assume that it is affecting you. Let's assume that this thing that actually happened was from you. Do you think you will literally still be saying this? Do you think you will keep quiet and be like, oh, why don't we come up and boycott? People do not just boycott when they are comfortable with some certain things. They boycott when they need a change. They boycott when they have seen it all, that these people did not value what I am spending here. They boycott when they feel pressed, when they feel like every single thing has oppressed them. That is the reason why people's boycott. So it is not your choice to boycott. It is what you should do. It is what you should come together, join hands together and do. That is my own opinion on all of this video. But I just want you guys to let me know what you think. Like I've already said, credit belongs to the original creator of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe, like this video, drop me a comment, and lastly, do not forget to share for every other person to get this good news. And I want to say a very big thank you to every one of you joining my membership, dropping commentaries, dropping super thanks, subscribing. I really do appreciate. I do not take you guys for granted. But anyways, with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Just let me know your honest opinion in the comment section. Bye for now. I love you guys. Mwah.